So it's Trinity Sunday. One of the first tenets they teach you at theological college, or any time you start being asked to do sermons. Dave will learn this very soon. Someone say to him, it's Trinity Sunday, Dave. Do you want, never try and explain the Trinity. Any time you try and explain the Trinity, you will be committing heresy. It is utterly ineffable. It has fallen the week that lots of other things fit better into our personal calendar here at St. Wilfrid's. So we're not going to talk about the Trinity at all. I am going to have a go at that, but we'll do it in 2 weeks. So all your theological questions on the doctrine of the Trinity will be answered then. And thankfully, the week after, it'll be Ask Me Anything, so you can clarify with me those things I got wrong or that you need to write to the bishop about. So, no Trinity stuff today other than in our worship. We are instead going to look at the finances. Why we're looking again at the finances and the giving and such. Surely we covered all this really, really well and thoroughly in February when we did that vision series, Rob. Well, for several reasons. Initially, because the numbers are in. We've recently had the APCM, and at that, we finally got the actual numbers on how much money came in and went out last year. So it's good to be able to revisit that. And some of the work that's been going on in the background in terms of crafting the vision of the church has come to a culmination. And Margaret has landed a big piece of work on looking at some of our giving systems. So all of this stuff just lands well this week. So first of all, I'm going to give you, if you don't have time to go back to, I think it was the 27th of February, and watch that whole sermon again, let me give you a few top tips about giving, and specifically, I mean giving money to us here at church, that we covered in that sermon. First up, a reminder that we are invited to give. Okay, there's not a rule about this. God loves a cheerful giver, is what the Bible tells us, and it is better to think of your giving as something you get to do rather than that you have to do. I'm not going to stand here and lecture you or guilt you about this. I think it's good for us. It's good for our mental health, for our attitude to material things. There are plenty of secular people out there who have discovered that regular giving to charitable causes is helping them with their attachment to stuff, their materialism and things like that. We are happy to serve you in this way by being a cause to which you can give money, but genuinely it is good for you to give away some money. It recalibrates us and helps us remember that hopefully, and for many of us, we live in a spirit of abundance, that there is plenty. Thirdly, we can never outgive God. We should remember that he has given and will give and does give everything for us. That he stepped out of heaven to reconcile us to him. There is nothing we can offer him that will in any way match what he has given us, and that's good to bear in mind. There's a lot you could say about that gospel reading from today, but one small thing is that Jesus said, give to God what is God's, and to Caesar what is Caesar's. And when he said that, everybody will have known that he was saying that everything is God's. The little prayer we say when things are brought up after we've passed the plate around, which I'm not sure we're going to continue doing because I think it's awkward. We keep asking people to come to church. New people come to church. And we say, oh, it's great you're here. Here, give us some money. The plate is awkward. There are better ways of us giving. But the prayer that we say at the front, those priests, is, all things come from you, and of your own do we give you. It's a reminder that we give to God what he gives us. I think it's part of an integrated life. For me, it's about integrity. And that's going to be quite personal, but I stand up here and tell you that giving is important, so I had better be giving, right? But I subscribe to this set of theology, these principles that giving is good for you, that giving is important, and to live alongside that by saying, church does matter to me, I will give money to keep church going. For me, it's putting my money where my mouth is, so to speak. I love this church, but I can't just love it from afar. I need to sort of pony up and help it work. I don't know what percentage you need to give. You'll remember that I took this on in February. I don't think we need to be giving 10% of our income to the church. I don't think there's any kind of biblical mandate that says that is what you ought to give. I think if you're earning millions and millions, it should probably be more than that. And if you're earning hardly anything, it should probably be less than that. It's up to you to work out what percentage you should be giving and to whom. But I think 10% is a pretty good ballpark to start working out what that is. If you're struggling to give even as much as that, then I think it's time for an honest conversation with yourself. And there are going to be times when you can't afford to be giving as much as you would like or as much as you used to, and I think that's fine. Of course it's fine. But there have been times when I have been asked to give and I didn't want to, and actually that was a thing in me, and me wanting to keep my money and spend it on other things or not trusting the church. I think it's hard to have honest conversations. I hope you can find someone to have a good, honest conversation about your giving with. If you have a spouse or a life partner or a family member you can do that with, I encourage you to. Please don't let it be me. In many ways, I am happy to talk to you theologically or hypothetically about your giving. Margaret will make very clear later, I do not know how much any of you give to this church. I do not want to know. It is very important that I never know that about you, okay? However much or how little it is. But it is important to talk about this so you can know, because it's one of those areas I think we will not always find it easy to be honest with ourselves. And those are hard conversations. Victoria and I agree most of the time about our giving, but there are some areas that we don't, and that's tricky. But that's probably a reason to have more conversations, not fewer. I think it's practically good for you as well. If you're going to be part of this community, it really helps to give to this, because then you feel part of it. You know, like you have some ownership of it. I remember being a teacher, and every now and then people who pay taxes, which was most people would say, unkind or uncomplimentary things, like, oh, I pay your wages, you should do what I tell you. Like there's a thing that we can sometimes feel we have ownership of something, and we want control for what we give to, and that's not helpful. But feeling like you're part of the system, that you belong here, and this is yours and you support it, I think helps us feel like we belong. It is good for us. If you do want to say in how things are run here, then please join the PCC, and we would love to have you. And we're always looking for the next church wardens, but you can't buy that. And the other thing, of course, you can't buy is your grace and salvation and the life in all its fullness that Jesus promises us. You don't get that because you start tithing your money. Nor, if you start giving more money to church, does that let you off all the other bits of your faith life. And saying, well, I'm giving them all my money. I don't have to pray or be nice to people or anything like that anymore. It's not true. I encourage you to give. It is good for you to give. It's important to give. It is also important to pray, to be kind, to explore your spiritual life in lots of other ways. Second thing then, while that's kind of the sermon part, and more of it was unpacked earlier on, you might well know, we get nothing from the Church of England. People talk about the church having money, and there are churches that do, and bits of the church that do, but it's not us. We do not receive anything from the Church of England other than me. We get me and my house and my pension, and I guess we get Paul and Sue's pension. So we're benefiting from having retired clergy, but we have to fund ourselves here, right? It's our job between us through giving and fundraising and business things to raise all of our money. In fact, it costs us, we spend about £60,000 a year going to the diocese on parish share. And between all the parishes in the Leeds diocese, they raise, I think it was about 13 million from parish share, and they spend on clergy and their houses and pensions just over 13 million. So every pound we spend on parish share puts vicars in houses in parishes. It costs about 50-something thousand to put a vicar in a vicarage, in a parish. So we're paying for slightly more than one vicar here, and there's lots of churches that are not able to pay for one vicar. So it's good that we share that out so that there are still vicars in places that couldn't afford them otherwise. That amount is going up slightly every year. So this is the current situation that we're facing. This is last year's accounts. It cost us, between parish share, heating, alpaca food, etc., it cost us £168,000 to run this church last year, to do messy church, to have Christmas put on well, not to fix the organ. We've kind of taken that out of this. That was a separate thing. But the general day-to-day life of this church last year cost us £168,000. And we brought in, between giving and things like that, £140,000. So last year we lost £28,000. It was an unusual year last year. We were coming out of COVID. That means that giving went down a little bit. Some people had moved on or just who died, and there weren't that many new people coming in as there usually are and starting to give. So there's a bit of a dip in that. Some costs had gone up, but last year the giving went up a bit. The giving went down, costs went up, and we had a £28,000 gap last year. It's likely to be a little bit bigger this year because cost of living crisis, right? It's going to cost us more to heat this year. This year we reckon heating will be about £30,000, gas and electric, for a church like this. So, the upshot. What's the plan? We're going to come at this in lots of different ways. The first thing to say, though, is that having spoken to Margaret and to Nicola and to the wardens, we are not worried about this. I do not think this is a cause for worry. It's certainly a cause for concern, and we need to address it. We're not a club, though, right? We're a church. We're expected to operate in faith. It is my firm conviction that we have between us, between all the members of the church and all the activities we do, enough to do what we're called to do. So this is a fixable thing, and I am thoroughly optimistic. Practically, the solutions will include some fundraising. We're looking at different ways of doing that. We'd like to employ somebody to help us do more events, to get more birthday parties in, to have a beer festival, which is being considered as we speak. We're thinking of an organ recital that will bring perhaps a different crowd, I should imagine, to the beer festival crowd. There will be ways that we can do things in church and in the barn that are missional, that help us to be part of the community, to interact with people, to be sharing the joy and the love of God that we know here, and also, some of the time, raising money for us. I think that's true. We're going to look at some new systems for giving. How many of you have got cash in your pockets today? I think I've got 40p, and that's rare. We do need to start looking at contactless giving, so there are going to be structures and systems we put in place to make it easy for you to go, yeah, bip, I'll give you some money that way. But we're also asking everybody once again to consider their giving. So this is kind of the rubber meeting the road of that sermon that we did earlier in the year. And as part of that, we have this new parish giving system that Margaret is going to take us through the ins and outs of. And I think while we do that, it's an opportunity not only to think about how you give and how much you give, but the specific manner of that in which you do it. Margaret, would you come and join us and talk to us about this before I unpack that a bit more?
Thank you. As I said, I spoke to the congregation this morning, and as I said to them, when I was telling my husband that I was going to be doing this, the very first thing he said was, well, you won't need that microphone. But I'm assuming you can all hear me. Sorry, Dave. Did you say you couldn't hear? Just to explain what I do, I'm the giving officer. That's a fancy title. It used to be gift aid secretary, which spells gas, so we didn't really like that. There are lots of ways that people give to church, but the way that is most efficient is by standing order, and a lot of people do that already. Some people bring envelopes, some people chuck coins on the plate. I'm responsible for ensuring that we recover from the government the tax that has, in a way, has already been paid on that money. In other words, we get 25% of anything a taxpayer gives. And last year, we got about £15,000 back. So it really is worth doing. And we want to bring things a little bit up to date. I've been doing this, I'm horrified to say, for about 20 years. And when I started doing it, the guy who'd done it before me terrified me by telling me that if I got it wrong, I'd end up in prison. So it was a bit scary. But we want to try and encourage everybody who gives regularly, because regular giving is great, to use this new parish giving scheme. I don't believe in reading everything on a slide. You can all read. So I'm just going to run through quickly the idea behind it. Instead of me doing everything, what will happen, we hope, is that you who are prepared to make a regular monthly payment will take out a direct debit that is paid or taken from your account on the 1st of the month. Then, parish giving, if you are a taxpayer, will recover the tax at that point and give us in church both your giving and the tax. Instead of me having to have a tantrum in January trying to fill in a tax return online and it not working, it will all be done. It's good from my point of view because although I am the only person in the whole wide world who knows what everybody gives, if I went under a bus tomorrow, it would be a mess. Somebody would have to find the secret book in the cupboard and sort out what happens. So from my point of view, and probably from yours, it's much better to adopt this scheme if you feel able to make a regular commitment to give. Now, there's lots of ways you can do it. You can sign up. I've done it already. And there's a letter for, I hope, everybody here to read anyway about the financial situation. And I'd also like you to take one of these leaflets, which goes into a bit more detail about the giving scheme. And it tells you on there how you can sign up. Right. So you can do it online, which I did. So if I can do it, I'm sure you lot will be able to do it. You can sign up by telephone, just by ringing them and saying you want to give us lots of money. Or you can fill in the form that is on here and send it to the parish giving scheme. Two important things, three actually. The first is that you need to know the parish reference number, which is on here. The second thing, somebody told me off this morning, even if you are not a taxpayer, you can still use this scheme. Thirdly, if you're not a taxpayer, but somebody in your family is, for example, as between Michael and I, he is a taxpayer, so he signs up for the giving, and the parish giving scheme, you can still recover the tax. So that is another thing that you can do, and there's a specific part of the form that relates to that. So you can say, we are Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, and I'm giving for both of us. I won't take any questions. I think I've rabbited on. I just want to tell you about my attitude to giving. I've lived in Calverley all my life, and this church is here because other people in my past supported it. And as well as our running expenses, if we don't want to be a carpet warehouse when our children are of an age to come, it's going to come from somewhere, and it's us. And finally, I feel when I give that I'm not just part of this church, but also I'm part of everything that our giving as a church does. To Tier Fund, to the Church Pastoral Aid Society, to SAMS, I'm a part of it. The end.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you. I think the other thing that the parish giving scheme does that's built into it is this annual check-in about inflation. I knew a chap at my last church who had committed very faithfully in the 1970s to give £5 a week to church, which was a very big deal in the 1970s, and is not so much now. And that's fine if that's what he's... If you want to give us £5 a month, we will be delighted with that, if that's your prayerful consideration. But if it's just what you picked, and then you never think about it, it goes down. So they will call you up every year or email you and say, in line with inflation, would you like to increase your giving by 2.5% or whatever percentage it is this year? Which is helpful, and you can always say, no, I can't afford it, that's fine. And it's also a reminder every year for you to think, actually, can you take it down a bit? Or, no, let's double it, I've got more this year, whatever it is. So you get this built-in reminder, so we don't just get thoughtless, static giving. So that's one of the features of it. I'll take questions on this actually afterwards. If you've got any, I'd be quite happy to. We've got a few minutes. But what are you giving to? What is the point? I think Margaret hit one of them. Like, this church has been here since 1154, and it would be nice if it was here. I don't want to be the last golden vicar on the list. It would be nice if there were more. I'm not in any way concerned that I will be, but that is one of the things that we are. We talk about who we belong to at that course earlier, and we belong to this long line of people who have loved Calverley and come here. It's nice to be part of that. But we're also giving to this. This is our new logo. You'll have spotted this appearing places. It's on Facebook. It's on our Twitter feed. Did you know we had a Twitter feed? We have a Twitter feed. You can find us and follow us. Huge thanks to Sally and to Richard Crooks, our architect, and to Jonathan, whose design team have worked on this. And between us, we have put together this logo, which hopefully it shows that it's the colours of our clock face, right? That's why it's yellow and blue, because that is the face of the church. And it shows us that we are at the heart of Calverley, at the heart of the community. St Wilfrid's at the heart of the community. Okay, you'll see this appearing lots of places. It's what's come out of our Vision Day. More importantly, it's not just a pretty picture. This is who we are. This is what we discerned collectively on that Vision Day. This is what we sat at Cockpit and with PCC. At the core of who we are, we're about loving God, loving Calverley, growing together. And that seems like a church I want to be part of and a thing worth funding. Everything we do will be about that. We discerned values at that day as well. We looked at these things. This church is a place of generosity and hospitality. When we say empowerment, that's that kind of everybody can do stuff here. Like, this is not one of those churches where I turned up and was like, oh, thank goodness the vicar's here. You can now be in charge of everything. A whole load of things happening. Messy Church was on yesterday. I didn't even come. Like, it works here. And we trust you to do stuff. We trust Claire and Kim to run Hope, and that's great. Crack on, do a thing, right? This is a place where we are all in it together. That value of empowerment, it runs deep here. Those are good values that we do like to serve together. It's never a problem to find people to stand in that hatch at the back, do coffee, and love people. We do stuff together. There is joy. I know there is. People smile when they come in here, and there is growth. We want to grow deeper in our faith, and we want more people to know about God. That's who we discerned ourselves as being. That's who I think we found out that we were that Vision Day. That takes, apparently, £168,000 a year to do in a building that doesn't leak too much, fall down, and so on. If we want to keep doing that, we need to give to it. I'd like to do even more than that. I would like in a year or two to have a youth worker that we are paying to help young people navigate the minefield of secondary school in an environment that it daunts me what they have to go through. I would like some help with that. There's vision before us, and I would like for us to do that well, all of us. If that's your vision, join us in that, I hope. Regular giving is good. I remember realising years ago that before Victoria found faith, I was a Christian on my own for a bit. And Victoria helped in lots of ways, and it's nice when you can go to church together, and that was good. But also my giving was somewhat disorganised, and I realised I was giving God whatever was left in my pocket at the end of the month, which was not good for me. It wasn't good for the church to make any plans, and I realised that God was worth better than my leftovers. Do I think that what church was doing was important? It helped me to have integrity in my giving, say, right, I can afford this much a month, and we all win that way. It's good. Read, pray, think, get a little letter from Margaret. It tells you how to do it. I did it by phone. I don't trust myself to type. It's easier. Call them up. Hello, this is my bank account. Brilliant. And sadly, it does have to be the first of the month, but there are ways.